Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 39, top of the page, with the words V'hatanya. V'hatanya, we learned in the Braisa, Don hatunin nisod, tunin kibus, machshava moedes bohen, v'amaylo mehen bachus chayav. And this is as it is taught in a Braita with regard to blood that requires the base of the altar, presumably a reference to the remainder of blood as a sin offering, which must be poured on the base of the altar, requires laundering. And improper intent is effective with regard to it, meaning, if the priest poured such blood with the intent to partake of the sacrificial meat beyond its designated time, the offering is pigul, and one who offers it up outside the temple is liable. V'damim hanishbachin na'ama, ein tunin kibus, vein machshov moedes bohen, ve'amaylo mehen bachutz patur. And conversely, with regard to blood that is poured into the temple courtyard drain, that passed through the temple and emptied into the Kidron River, which is blood that has become disqualified, it does not require laundering, and improper intent is not effective with regard to it. And one who offers it up outside the temple is exempt. Man shamat le de'amar ma'ala behen b'chutz chayav avinechem yahi ika'amar ton kivus. The Gemara inquires, about whom did you learn that he said, the one who offers up the remainder of the blood outside the temple is liable? It is Rabbi Nehemiah who says this, and he states in this Braita that a garment that was sprayed with such blood requires laundering. Umachshava moedes bohen, v'atanya yatsu shirayim aktarasi morin, shein makvin es hakapara, shein machshava moedes bohen. The Gemara asks, and is proper intent effective with regard to blood that must be poured on the base of the altar? But isn't it taught in a Braita discussing the intent that renders an offering pigul? The possibility of pigul applies only with regard to a service that is indispensable for atonement. This serves to exclude pouring the remainder of the blood on the altar and burning the sacrificial portions on the altar, actions that are not indispensable for atonement, concerning which the halacha is that improper intent is not effective with regard to them. Ki hatanya ahi b'shalosh matanos she'bachatas. Rather, when that Braita is taught, stating that blood that requires the base requires laundering, it is not referring to the remainder of the blood after the placements have been completed. Instead, it is referring to the blood that is to be used for the last three placements of the blood of a sin offering. Ihachi tziyunin yisod keren ozli hema nit orin yisod umachshav moedes bohen ha'amart lo sharia v'lo mafliga v'palga v'lo aliyah legabe kol Sofer. The Gemara asks, if so, is it correct to describe this blood as requiring the base of the altar? After all, this blood goes to the corner of the altar, not the base. The Gemara answers, say that this means blood that becomes required for the base, meaning blood that in the end, after the placements are completed, will be poured out on the base of the altar. The Gemara further asks, but is improper intent effective with regard to the blood of the last three placements of the blood of the sin offering? Didn't you say that this blood does not render the offering permitted for eating, nor does it render the offering pigul, and it is not governed by the halacha that if the blood enters inside the sanctuary, the sin offering is disqualified? With regard to all these matters, applies. The blood of the last three placements is treated like the blood presented at the end, meaning like the remainder of the blood of a sin offering. The Gemara explains, rather, when that Braita is taught stating that the blood requiring the base requires laundering, and improper intent is effective with regard to it, and one who presents it outside the temple is liable, it is indeed referring to the remainder of the blood after the placements have been completed. It is stated not with regard to the remainder of the blood of a standard sin offering, but with regard to the remainder of the blood of inner sin offerings, which are brought on the inner altar located inside the sanctuary. Adetani damim hanishbachin, dama liflog v'listim v'lidim, b'ameh devarim amorim, edabi b'habrivim, aval dam nefesayim pato. The Gemara asks, but if that is the case with regard to the remainder of the blood of external sin offerings that are brought on the external altar, what is the halacha? Is one who presents them outside the temple exempt? If so, rather than teaching the halacha of disqualified blood that is poured into the temple courtyard drain, let the bride to distinguish and teach the halacha within the case of the remainder of the blood itself in the following manner. In what case is the statement said? In a case of the blood of sin offerings brought on the inner altar, but in the case of the blood of sin offerings brought on the external altar, one who offers up such an offering outside the temple is exempt. Homani Rabbi Nechemia de'omar shi'orei adam shekrivan b'chutz chai v'lo yimasni le'eselasa b'turi lahadi t'lasa chiyuvei. The Gemara answers, the Braita could not have made such a distinction, for in accordance with whose opinion is this ruling? It is in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Nechemia, who says, with regard to the remainder of the blood of a sin offering brought on the external altar in a case where one presented it outside the temple, he is liable. And therefore, were the Tana to contrast the halacha of the blood of sin offerings brought on the external altar with that of the blood of sin offerings brought on the inner altar, he would not have been able to teach three rulings of exemptions corresponding to three rulings of liabilities, as Rabbi Nechemia maintains that even with regard to the remainder of the blood of a sin offering brought on the external altar, if one presents it outside the temple, he is liable. Therefore, the Tana preferred to compare the halachot of the remainder of the blood of inner sin offerings to the disqualified blood that is poured into the temple courtyard drain, so that he could list three lenient rulings alongside three stringent ones. Ravinama min hakeren mamash min hayesod min haroi leisod. The Gemara returns to discuss the statement of Rav Papa that a garment sprayed by blood from the last three placements of the blood of a sin offering requires laundering, and to his proof from the Mishnah that states that if the blood of a sin offering sprayed onto the garment from the corner of the altar or from the base of the altar, the garment does not require laundering. Ravina says, in answer to the objection raised against Rav Papa above, that according to Rav Papa, the Mishnah 93a should be understood as follows. The term from the corner means from the corner literally, after the blood was placed there, and therefore Rav Papa could infer from this that blood that is fit to be placed in the corner, including the blood to be used for the last sprinklings requires laundering, but the term from the base of the altar does not mean from the base literally. Rather, it means from blood that is fit for the base of the altar, meaning the remainder of the blood which is to be poured on the base. Okay. Amale Rav Tachlifa Bar Gaza Ravina Ema Idi V'Idi Roi Hu Hai Mai Hashte Roi Keren Amrit La Roi Lisod Min Boy Ela Mina Keren Mamash Min Yesod Mina Roi Lisod Rav Tachlifa Bar Gaza says to Ravina, one can say a different explanation, that both this and that, meaning the term from the corner and the term from the base, are referring to blood that is fit for the corner or the base, in which case the Mishnah teaches that a garment sprayed by the blood that was used for the last three placements of a sin offering does not require laundering, contrary to the opinion of Rav Papa. Ravina replied, what is this claim? Now that you say that blood which is fit for the coroner does not require laundering, is it necessary to state that the same applies to blood that is merely fit for the base of the altar? That ruling would be unnecessary. Rather, it must be that the term for the corner means from the corner literally, meaning that the blood has already been placed there, whereas the term from the base means from the blood that is fit for the base, meaning from the remainder of the blood which is to be poured on the base. Kol hanitanin al mizbeach hapnimi kure tanu Rabbanan yasaka shirasa maba lilmod. The Mishnah teaches with regard to all the offerings whose blood is to be placed on the inner altar, which are the bull and the goat of Yom Kippur, the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest, the bull for an unwitting communal sin, and the goat for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship if the priest omitted even one of the placements. It is as though he did not facilitate atonement. The sages taught in the Braita, the Torah first discusses the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest, and afterward the bull for an unwitting communal sin, concerning which it states, and he shall do with the bull as he did with the bull for a sin offering. Leviticus 4:20. It may be asked, this phrase, and he shall do as he did, what does this come to teach? All the details stated with regard to the first bull, meaning that of the anointed priest, seem to be stated explicitly with regard to the second bull as well. Lichpol beha'azato b'nomachim chiser achas mikol hamatanos lo aser l'klum eli elamatan sheba makavos בכל מקום מתן ארבע מנהיים. לא אמר, כן יעשה. Rather, the verse comes to repeat the halachi of the sprinkling of the blood, as though it were written twice with regard to the same bull. This repetition of the halacha indicates that the sprinkling is indispensable, thereby teaching that if the priest omitted one of the placements, he has done nothing. I have a derivation only with regard to the 7 placements on the curtain separating between the sanctuary and Holy of Holies, that they are indispensable, as these 7 are indispensable in all cases, as the Gemara will explain on 48. From where is it derived that the same applies to the 4 placements on the inner altar? The verse states, so shall he do. Leviticus 4:20. Lapar Zepar Yom Kippurim. The Braita continues. The verse states, "And he shall do with the bull," Leviticus 4:20. This alludes to a different bull whose service is similar, namely the bull of Yom Kippur. See? Let's just continue on. It's a very short part here. So we're continuing on to 39b, and I think we'll take it out with this. Kasher Salapar Zepar Kohen Mashiach Zepar Kohen Mashiach Mashiach כן, החטס אלה שעירי אבוי לזרה יחוש אני מרבה אף שעירי הרגולים ושעירי ראשי חדושים תמד לא אמר לוי. As he did with the bull, Leviticus 4:20, this is a reference to the bull for an unwitting sin of the anointed priest, teaching that all of the sprinklings of the blood of this bull are also indispensable. A sin offering, these are the goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship, teaching that they are offered in the same manner as the bull for an unwitting communal sin, their blood being sprinkled in the sanctuary and their flesh burnt. One might have thought that I should include also the goats of the festivals and the goats sacrificed on the new moons, which are communal offerings as well, meaning that their service should be performed inside the sanctuary like that of the bull for an unwitting communal sin. Therefore, the verse states, "So shall he do with this." Leviticus 4:20, which indicates that his service is performed only with this animal and not with the goats of the festivals or the goats of the new moons. Umar yisod rabois is elu ulehoitzi es elu achar sheribo kasuv miet merbe ani es elu shemechaprin al averas mitzvah yedua umotzi ani elu shemechaprin al avera mitzvah yedua. The Gemara asks, and what did you see to include these goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship, and to exclude those goats sacrificed on the festivals and the new moons? The Gemara answers, after noting that the verse included some offerings and excluded others, one can say, I include these goats for an unwitting communal sin of idol worship as they atone for the known transgression of a mitzvah, meaning idol worship, and therefore they are similar to the bull for unwitting communal sin, which is brought for an erroneous ruling of the Sanhedrin with regard to a specific mitzvah. And I exclude those goats sacrificed on the festivals and the new moons, as they do not atone for the known transgression of a mitzvah, but rather they atone for the unwitting defilement of the temple or its sacrificial foods. The Braita resumes its interpretation of the verse, and the priest shall make atonement. This teaches that atonement is achieved even if the elders did not place their hands on the head of the bull as they are commanded to do. See Leviticus 4:15. And they shall be forgiven. This teaches that atonement is achieved even if the priest did not place the remainder of the blood on the base of the altar as is required. See Leviticus 4:7. The Gemara again asks, and as the verse does not specify which aspects of the service are included and which are excluded, what did you see to disqualify the offering in the case of the 7 sprinklings? How did you derive that the phrase, "and he shall do as he did," teaches that the 7 sprinklings are indispensable? And what did you see to render the offering fit in the absence of placing hands on the head of the offering and pouring out the remainder of the blood on the base of the altar, based on the words, and the priest shall make atonement, and they shall be forgiven. Amarta posel ani vazois, shema kavois b'chol makom, umachshirani mesnich v'shiraim, she'ei ma kavois b'chol makom. The Gemara answers, you should say the following logical argument. I disqualify the offering in the absence of the 7 sprinklings, as these 7 sprinklings are indispensable in all cases, as will be explained in 48. And I render the offering fit in the absence of placing hands on the head of the offering, and in the absence of pouring the remainder of the blood onto the base of the altar, as these are not indispensable in all cases. And therefore, it is reasonable to conclude that they are not indispensable here either.